fast forward to today, and I'm sat here with you. I've got 281,000 students in my courses in 181 countries. Hey guys, a couple of months ago, one of you said, should start our own SaaS platform that's an all-in-one business platform for all of you to host your courses on. Well, I've kind of done it. If you're interested, stick your name on this form. Well, I had 754 people sign up in 12 hours. We got this valuation of $15 million. It was 15 to something. I think it was 15 to 19. I just went with the lowest because I was so blown away.
Welcome to the Level Me podcast, where we rise to the level of those around us. And today we have Sarah from Tekmatix. Sarah, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited. I got introduced to you a week or two ago and realised you're pretty much a neighbour. So welcome to the Gold Coast.
Thank you so much. It's really nice to actually sit in person in a studio and do a podcast interview. I was so used to doing them online. And do you know what's epic? None of you can see this, but there is a whole board of notes. I love whiteboards. I love notes on paper. Again, moving away from digital, this is epic to be here in the room today.
How good's I love a whiteboard. Like, even if you've got an idea or whatever, you just get up there and flesh it out. There's something about it, something different about it.
Feel really profesh, don't you? You just get the whiteboards out and everything. It's so good.
Yeah. So Tekmatix is a CRM, and it's an all-in-one CRM. And I was having a little peek behind the scenes before, but it looks like you kind of connect to all the other adaptive platforms that are out there. But do you want to give us a little walkthrough around what you guys do?
Yeah, well, I'm actually a teacher trainer by trade, which has been going on since way before course creation was sexy. I've spent the last 15 years postgraduate trained in education, so I did actually go to school to teach people how to teach. And as part of teaching people how to create their own courses and coaching programs over the last decade plus, one big part of helping them make money from that was obviously having to set up all the tech around it. So over the last 10 plus years, I partnered up with all of the big boys out there, your Kajabis, your Thinkifics, your Active Campaigns, and all of the other tech that people needed to run their business, websites, lead pages, funnels, calendar booking pages, and all these different things. And what we were finding was that it was becoming a bit of a snake's wedding. It was a bit of a tech tangle. One thing falls apart there and the whole deck of cards falls down over there. And not to mention then just the ever-growing subscription costs that we were all feeling. And we all do as business owners, right? You get something else working and bang, you get another monthly bill to pay on top of it all. And then on top of that, as your list grows, instead of getting these wins, it's almost like you're getting punished because the bills increase as your contact numbers increase. And as you add more courses, you have to keep upgrading your plans on all these subscriptions. So I was feeling this pain as a course creator and as a business owner, and I was genuinely getting really annoyed. Like, why is it I'm being punished for growing my business? COVID hit, bam, all of the big boys out there massively increased their prices on everybody on all these tech stack subscriptions. And one of my students in a call basically just very casually turned around and said, Sarah, why don't you create your own? And I thought, challenge accepted. So 2 months later, this thing was born. Tekmatix came about. And fortunately today, it's very, very easy to create a SaaS. Back in the olden days, you would have had to obviously hire very clever people for huge amounts of money and basically code out everything from scratch, as you know, as a tech owner. Today, it's very, very simple to jump onto SaaS builders and basically create anything you want because everything plugs into everything else these days with what's called an API. But for those of you not in the tech world, it's basically you can stick a plug into any plug hole, and all tech tools today have plugs and plug holes. And basically what we've done with Tekmatix is orchestrated this combination of different tools using existing, amazing, highly functioning softwares that allow any business owner to run their whole business in one place for one subscription that doesn't increase every month.
I love that. Yeah, it's so true. Like, you have your different platforms that are out there, and as soon as your content changes or your customer base grows, like every platform then increases in price, and it's just like, oh man, how am I going to get ahead? But they know that, they're aware of that, right?
Savage.
Like, yeah, exactly.
Brutal, isn't it?
That's really cool, and that's awesome. So you have no tech skills?
Well, other than obviously the learning on the fly, I think a lot of us in business, we are just learning as we go, right? It's the age-old school of hard knocks. You figure it out as you go along. But for me, because I'd spent the last 10 plus years having to learn how all these email systems work, how all of these different platforms work, I think once you've learned one or two, I guess it's like languages, right? Once you've learned one or two languages, it's really easy to learn other languages because a lot of things are so familiar and similar in the way that they're structured and the way that they're laid out. And And so tech's kind of the same, right? You know, you learn a few of these systems, and once you grasp those basic concepts and, you know, put yourself in a position where you can get some help from maybe some more techie people, a bit smarter, anything's really possible today, isn't it? It's so exciting.
It's cool that you've been able to, like, I think having the grasp of what the systems do, like what works, what doesn't work, what worked for you is the most important thing. Like, yes, you can pay a coder to go out and actually build it, but understanding what works really well is probably where your biggest strength has been from the start. Yeah. And so how was like that moment of, okay, how do I create a product? Did you do heaps of research on like where you could get someone to build something, or like how did that process look for you?
Yeah, well, for me, it had been a dream for a really long time to start my own tech platform. I actually came on board with some of these bigger tech providers as a partner and one of their top affiliates a decade plus ago. And they, you know, really actually helped me leverage my personal brand because I was female, which was obviously a big tick in a box back in the early tech days, and being qualified in education. A lot of those big learning management systems did basically open their doors wide for me and say, come on board as an educator, as an affiliate, and we'll help you if you help us. And it was a really beautiful symbiotic relationship that I had with all these guys. And, you know, from there, we get to learn the things that work. We get to learn because we're using that software for our own business as well as setting up all of our clients on it. We also learn what didn't work. And I think that's all a great product, a great service, or a great business is, isn't it? It's you learn your industry, you learn what your customers' needs are, you learn where the gaps are because you're living it and experiencing it and falling down them yourself every day. If you can find a solution to that, you're going to win every single time. And if you then design that product, that service, that course, that idea around fixing that problem for that very specific niche that you know and understand because you are it yourself, you just can't fail. You can make a few mistakes, you can pour some money into the wrong places, but you can't completely fail if you go in it continuously planning to learn and iterate and evolve whatever it is that you've made. And that's kind of how Tekmatix has continued to evolve over the last few years, by just doing it, using it ourselves, figuring it out and making it better.
Yeah, a lot of people say, like, go and solve a problem. And I think if you know what the problem is and you've identified a problem in your area, and even if it doesn't, like, even if it's niche to like 1,000 people or whatever it means that those 1,000 people have a problem, and you can go and solve that problem not only for you, but for those people. And as the industry grow with that. I think it's so simple. And like, a lot of people just go out there and build something that they think would be nice or they think would work, but there's no real problem there. And as long as you've identified there's a real problem and people will pay for it, then it's a great business model to start.
Yeah.
2 months is a pretty short development time. How did you manage that?
Oh, there is actually a hilarious story around there. So once I did all this research and thought, right, okay, I know what I'm going to do. Instead of coding from scratch, it's going to be definitely wiser and more beneficial to our users if we use tried and tested existing tools that are out there and just stitch them together in the right way. So I say I'm not the creator of the product. I'm more of the conductor of the orchestra, so to speak. But those massive bits of sticky butcher's paper that you can stick on the wall. Loves a bit of stationery, me. Don't know about, we were just talking about some stationery then. Loves it. I got one of those and I stuck it up on my wall saying, I want 50 beta testers by December. It was September. So I had 3 to 4 months to get these first 50 customers. And I thought, if I got 50 customers in that 3 to 4 months, I am gonna be stoked, right? This non-tech developer chick going into the SaaS industry for the first time, that's gonna be a pretty good outcome. I think a lot of people starting SaaS would be really pleased with that. So it was my goal. Wrote it on a massive, massive piece of paper. Well, I did a live stream in my fluffy socks in the spare bedroom, completely unplanned, unscripted. I just turned on a Facebook Live, and it's still public, by the way. I was like, hey guys, a couple of months ago, one of you said, should start our own SaaS platform that's an all-in-one business platform for all of you to host your courses on. Well, I've kind of done it. If you're interested, stick your name on this form. Well, I had 754 people sign up in 12 hours. And I'm going, I have no SOPs, I have no staff, I now have no onboarding process, I have no training materials and resources. We have nothing set up. So my husband came home from work, he was a police officer at the time, and I just said, babe, I've got to go. Where are you going? He said, Philippines. I just gave him a kiss, legged it with a suitcase, hired a whole bunch of people, and there was 6 of us sat on a hotel room on my bed, just working 12 hours a day on the keyboard, madly creating all of our systems, processes, training materials, training instruction videos. It was absolutely the most mental 2 weeks of my life. We stayed there for just under 2 weeks, about 10 days. Didn't sleep a wink. We lived off coffee and pizza. But we made it happen. We absolutely made it happen. And because I launched to a small but highly loyal customer base who already knew me, they were very forgiving with those little kinks that were there. There were quite a few like trapdoors that we didn't realize or know about. You know, there's just some things in business you just don't know are there until you start walking the path. So there were landmines and trapdoors everywhere, but those people were so forgiving and so supportive and so encouraging of us. And in those early days, you know, that it just kept motivating us to keep improving and keep making it better. And now we've got an absolutely solid product, which is now today the most awarded all-in-one business and course creation platform in Australia. And that's just because we're going to just keep failing forward, keep asking the questions to our audience. How can it be better? And you just get on with it and make it happen.
Building that existing audience is so valuable. Hey, did you have like a prototype for the first 2 months that before you launched, or did you literally just launch, get the 750 people and go, okay, we're going to build something now?
I'd like to say it was as organised as having a prototype. We did decide to very clearly in capital letters word it as "this is beta," aka this might not be perfect right now. I think it was really important to just pre-frame that because even we didn't know what problems we might find from it. But again, a lot of people, we gave them a very special grandfather offer. And I think it's one of the things you can do with any product or service. I recommend it to my course creators today. If you go out there with a new product for the first time, just like a newborn, you know, when it falls out, we've both got kids. When it falls out, it ain't that pretty, right? It stinks. It's a bit gross and wrinkly. It's covered in muck, you know, everything's a bit chaotic. I think anything you create in business is kind of the same. So we just sort of say, the first X number of people or for an X period of time, we did a period of time with Tekmatix, you're going to get the pro plan, lock it in for life at this price. So everyone who comes in will forever be on this price and you will get all future upgrades and improvements. So they were all very forgiving, knowing that they were getting one epic deal. And we still have almost all of those customers today.
That's crazy. Did you buy yourself time in those 2 weeks? Did you say to them, oh, look, we're going to launch it in a month's time or something like that? Or were you like, did you have people that were slowly starting to use it?
We actually did it proper wild. We just let them all in. So we just said to them,
wild.
Like proper wild. We said to them all, look, we didn't expect this many people to come on board. And I did show them all my 50 people. There's now 754 of you. So I said, we'll all get in touch with each one of you one at a time to book in your onboarding calls and get you each set up. Meanwhile, we paused billing for about 30 days just so that we could kind of catch up with everybody. But it was pretty funny. And we did have some massive laughs with some of our clients over some of the things that happened. You know, just even from us making the most classic mistakes ourselves in all the mayhem that was going on. Like we accidentally sent an internal email out to all 754 people and, you know, just moments like that the only thing you can do is just absolutely wet yourself laughing at everything you're doing and everything that's going wrong. Someone passed me another coffee. Screw it. Where's the wine?
At 11 a.m.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like I could just picture you there for 2 weeks with the whole team just on the bed trying to get this thing done. And that's business. Like that's the core of business. Like if you see a product and you can sell it, you've sold it, pre-sold it already. You know the customers are there. Like you want to get it done. You want to get it launched, and you have to live in the Wild West.
It is, and this is what I say to so many of my course creation clients as well. It's like imperfect action will earn you more and make a bigger impact than trying to create absolute perfection and have this perfect product or thing or service the second you put it out there. You cannot just, drop a perfect empire out of your butthole, if I'm going to word it that way, right? You have to put it down one brick at a time. And most of these amazing things that you create make a huge mess before everything's all finished and pristine with the perfect plant pot in the background. So I always say to people, I've never been one to fuss too much about logos or branding or how perfect everything looks, because at the end of the day, it's the experience that you have promised to your customers or the outcome that you've promised to your customers that is the most important. Our branding, I did myself on that bed at like 3 o'clock in the morning. It was the ugliest thing you have ever seen in your entire life. And to this day, today, I've still left most of it public from the old initial branding because it's funny. And it's a real true story of creation, right? This is what it looked like. Go back and look at some of the early YouTube videos, right? It is disgusting. But this is where we were able to put that first version 1 out, get that first bunch of customers on board, which gave us a heap of money, which we then were able to reinvest in making it better the following quarter. We waited an entire 18 months with that horrific branding before we went, you know what? We've now got proof of concept. We now have had solid, repeatable, reliable, monthly recurring revenue coming in for more than 12 months. We now feel confident that we can go and invest in something as luxurious as branding. So we got that done 18 months later, once we had money coming through the door. I think it's one of the biggest mistakes a lot of new business owners make is they worry about the branding and does it look all beautiful? Make money. Make some money. That's way more important than anything else. I don't care how many people say to me, your thing was the ugliest thing I've ever seen. I'm like, yep, ugly and rich. Woo!
It's so true. I think branding can change, right? So why not prove the concept first? Yeah. It's the same with processes and everything else like that. A lot of people are like, oh, what, are you using Xero? Are you using MyOb? How do you send an invoice? Mate, just pull up an Excel spreadsheet, put in some numbers and send it as an invoice. It doesn't have to be that complicated. A lot of people think they have to get everything perfect beforehand, but it's just that, prove the concept. I
wonder if for people today, that's because there are so many tools available today. And so people think you should be using or doing something. You and I have been in business for a really long time before there were tools for any of this stuff. My invoices were a Word document. And I'd handwritten the numbers on the top just to try and be able to keep track of it. It's I think maybe we had a little less of that perfectionism over us because we didn't have so many options for things to be right. We were just get your shoes on, go door knocking, or you ain't going to make any money. That's certainly my early days, my early experience as a business. It's bang a door down and use what you got.
100%. So first 2 weeks is mayhem in the Wild West. But then you get to year 1 and you're at a $15 million valuation. How does that work? How did you manage to scale that quickly?
Well, yes. So we had the valuation done at around the 18-month mark. Okay. So that was a reflection back on the first 12 months of operations. This was for me, I did not by any means expect to get that market valuation. Now, by the way, let's all just talk about valuations. I've got a property guy in front of me here. If somebody comes and values your property at, let's say, $1 million, it's kind of meaningless because it's only worth that if someone wants to pay that, right? So this is when we're talking about business valuations, it's the same. And a business valuation is going to go through a whole bunch of different assessments and analysis of a business to work out what the market might think it's worth. And your EBITDA, your earnings before tax, is only one part of that. So I didn't know what to expect in terms of this valuation, but the reason I did it was because for me, Tekmatix is potentially a business that I will scale to sell one day. And in order to make a business as successful as possible, there are really set things you're going to want to do with it so that it is attractive to a potential buyer or investor down the line. And so I did this more of as an educational exercise for me to kind of see, well, what have we done well? What gaps do we have? What are our risks? What would an investor come and look at our business at and go, that is just shockingly risky, that's terrible, that's awesome. So I paid to have this valuation done. And there are a number of different things. I recommend everyone should do this because you can get it for quite an affordable price. And there are a number of things they look at. Obviously, monthly recurring revenue is an excellent one for SaaS. And even if you don't have a SaaS business, I still, even for people who are running courses, coaching programs, memberships, consultants, any kind of service, recommend to people, is there a way you can make a membership version of whatever it is that you do as a product or a service? Because the valuation on your business dramatically increases as well as your bottom line coming in. So that's one of them. They'll also look at things like your structures, your systems. So all those swaps that we madly started writing at 3 a.m. in the Philippines, we've continued to build on those, over the next 18 months became a real core focus, particularly staffing in support, turnover pretty quickly. Support is a hard job to do. You're getting angry, upset people who are frustrated and don't know how to use something, yelling at you pretty much all day long, right? Fortunately, that doesn't happen too much with Tekmatix, but we had to make sure that I wasn't basically spending all of my time in this perpetual training process as new staff.
Well, I was just looking on the website before, and I think it was like 90 staff or something, support staff or something like that. Like
we've got 54 on our support desk.
60 it was, that's crazy.
Yeah, and you can't, no business owner should be, have all the how-tos in their head of how to do anything. And you certainly can't keep spending your time training if you are scaling business. So they look at that. What procedures do you have in place? Could somebody literally sit in that seat? If that person leaves today, someone else can sit back in that seat in the next 10 minutes and take over. And if you've got those kinds of systems in place, you have yourself a solid low-risk business. So there's all those kinds of things. Is the business owner the person who is literally the bottleneck and the linchpin on which everything rests? If I was sick tomorrow, God forbid, got hit by a car, will my business collapse? And you want to be in a situation where the answer to that is actually you're meaningless in your business. You want to make yourself as redundant and useless as possible. And so all these things are looked at. And because I think my experience, my overnight success has come from 15 years worth of business learning, absolute stuff ups and everything else in between. John's laughing because he knows it's totally been there. But this is where they looked at all of that and went, well, you've done all of this. You've got this monthly recurring revenue. You've got this many customers. Your churn rate is only this, meaning lots less people are leaving. And we got this valuation of $15 million. It was 15 to something. I think it was 15 to 19. I just went with the lowest because I was so blown away. And it made me kind of really see the power of discipline around operational setup and focusing on income over perfection and focusing on customer support and customer service over how good do we as the business owner look. And that has been such a big thing that we're now focusing on continuing to improve, because my goal, sitting here today, just about coming up to 40, I want to have a $50 million business at 50. And I want one of my competitors to come along and go, all right, chick, we're done. We're buying you out. And I'll go, nice as 100 million, actually. Because why not?
I love it. That's amazing. It's such a good story. And I can't believe, did you get multiple valuers, or did you find one that you really wanted to? Was it like a good economy and you got a big multiple? How did that whole thing look like? Yeah,
well, with all the different ways that you are assessed under that, it was a huge process we had to go through. We had to have obviously signed off financial documents from our CPA accountants. They had to go in and look at all of our business systems and operations, and could somebody take over if they had to. So it's not necessarily on what's going on in the market at the moment. It's also valued on, is it an international product, or is it only focused on one particular market or one particular language or one particular currency? We managed to get a really broad spectrum of customers across numerous countries. So that again increases the valuation, because if one particular economy or one particular market goes down, you're still going to be held up by others. And in our business, fortunately, that's been very strong and very spread out. So it's all these little tiny things I think a lot of us going into business don't think about. But I hope people listening to this today kind of get some real ideas around, well, what can I do to start making my business as low a risk as possible, but also sourcing its income from as many locations as possible. And in fact, it was one of my biggest failures in business that made that and makes that today one of the things that I focus on most heavily, because my education company quite some time ago was focused on one income only. So we were dependent, or my clients were rather dependent on one government funding stream in Australia. And I was based in WA, where all of my clients were located, which back then was pretty much entirely run by the success or the failure of the mining industry. So not only had I put all of my eggs in one basket in terms of geographical location, in terms of where the source money was coming from, but also on one particular industry. So what happened when the government made one decision one Tuesday morning in February 2014? Sarah lost $2.7 million and 21 employees in a single day. So this is what we mean by the valuation of my company back then would have been minus something, because the risk was so high on a local economy, on a particular niched industry, and in a particular geographical location. So with Tekmatix, and obviously my education business is very different today, learned the hard way. We again went, well, how can we make sure that we have a massive geographical spread, we have multiple currencies, we have people in all different industries, the location, the industry, the niche, everything is completely and utterly, diversified. Yeah, completely. That's a strong business there.
Across different markets, it's super smart. And I think that whole history, like, let's double click on the history of business. I know there's a few other things that I want to get into, but going back, like, you've been in business for 15 years. What are some other, what were some of the first businesses that you started and some of the key learnings from those as well?
Well, I think starting a SaaS startup made me fall down some kind of time warp, because I actually started my first business when I was 19, my education company that's still running today, and I'm 40. So it's been more than 15 years, but let's not tell anyone. Let's just, let's keep it as is. And I've completely forgotten the question.
Well, just like history of your business and key learnings.
Oh, look, do you know what? Interesting kind of backstory. I am a gypsy. And in my heritage, in the culture that I've come from, traditionally, women do not go to school. You absolutely don't. It's just not done. And not only do you not go to school, you certainly don't start a business. You support your partner. And so for me to have even gone and got an education in the first place, I became the first female in my extended family to go to university. And that happened to be a degree in education, which just kind of blew away all the norms in my family. My father, however, was self-employed. So I had this really interesting view of half of my family who didn't believe in work at all, who didn't believe in following the system. However, part of the gypsy culture is to be self-sufficient, however. So there was that kind of sideline. We don't depend on anyone. We don't depend on anything. We certainly don't take handouts or dole money. And so we have to find ways to be self-sufficient, albeit it's the men that do so. And then my father, who's self-employed, watching him work really hard to build really deep relationships in the community that we grew up in, and how those relationships and the love and the care that he had for his customers kept him on repeat business his entire life. And in fact, he's just retired at 70 years old now. And those things really sat with me. And I knew in my heart, it was just a knowing that I was always going to run my own business. I always was very ambitious. I wanted jobs, and I got my first job at 12. I pretended I was 15. Back then, you could just have a piece of paper with a handwritten date of birth on it to prove that you could work. I may have acquired one of those. But yeah, I basically finished my degree. I didn't actually enjoy school very much. I found it it trapped me. It made me feel very oppressed and suffocated and all the rules. However, I went backpacking around the world, having sworn I'd never go back into a classroom again, fell into teaching while I was traveling around the world, came back from this backpacking trip, and there was one place left in the university local to me, and it was education. And I did the whole going to schools and stuff, and I realized that snot was not for me. However, I then fell into adult education as part of my teaching practice. I actually applied to go and teach in the local prison. And I realized that smackheads were far more entertaining than snot and bogies. And wording it that way, that was genuinely what we were dealing with. It became this really fascinating experience for me in how, when we're in an adult education environment, there's actually more of an exchange in terms of what we learn, what we give, what we bring, the energy that brings into that classroom, and how much more it is about building and growing as people rather than just memorizing the chemical equation to photosynthesis for a test that doesn't matter, right? And so that, for me, I really started to see and understand learning and development in a very different way to this very prescribed, formal system that I believe is actually quite archaic and doesn't work in this world today anymore anyway. So yeah, I started working in the prison system. I was offered a job as a trainer and a curriculum developer, which merged perfectly with obviously my qualifications I was doing at the time. No one else there wanted to do any of the work. And as someone who was really excited to do the work, I managed to basically learn and implement and practice everything that I was learning in my degree. I got offered a job outside the prison system as the local training manager, and then started teaching all of the other teachers how to implement the curriculum that I had been able to put together. We nearly lost our jobs because the government changed. Here's this high risk thing again, right? The government changed completely unexpectedly. And they all said, well, because you're working in the government education system, you might all be redundant next week. Sorry, not sorry. So I thought, well, I love this work. I love what I do. Clearly, what I love and what I do is needed because there's all these people here who depend on this improvement and this path to change their lives and get a better existence. So I went, well, who needs a job to do that? I literally started my education company. I went into university the next day for class, and I turned around to my university lecturer and I said, will you work for me? And he said, sure. So I hired my university lecturer. I started this education company. I wrote old school snail mail letters to all of the local councils, all of the local prisons, all of the local community centres, all of the local education and training providers. And I said, here's me. Here's what I teach, because I put together all these programs working in the prison system. Here are all the things I teach. Here are all the people I can help. Here are all the programs I can write, run, manage, or organise for you. And here's how much I charge. I got my first contract was a couple of £1,000 from the local council, and I thought, we're in business. Called up my university lecturer, said, you start next week. And that was it. It took off. And just to make it even funnier, when the government did change, not only did I not lose my job, I then got promoted to national training manager. So I had to hand the whole operation of my company, which was now in full swing, over to my university lecturer and hire a couple more trainers. And it just grew from there.
It's so simple. I think some people just overcomplicate business. And I think that's such a true story of that is like you can go to your lecturer and just say, hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing. Do you want to come and like, I'm sure you didn't phrase it, do you want to come and work with me? Maybe you did. I don't know. Yep. Maybe you got the confidence. But like, that's how simple it can be. People are like, oh, I'll never have anyone work with me. Or like, why would someone who could be seen as a mentor to me want to come and work for me? But it's honestly that simple. It's about asking the question, getting the sales done, like getting the money coming in, and then going, all right, here it is. We're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah. I just got to jump in. Hey, I think just people do overcomplicate it. You just get out and write those letters. When I rocked up in Australia, I was able to grow the business really, really quickly here. So obviously you can probably tell my accent, people listening originally from the UK, if you didn't get all the clues. I rocked up to Australia. My husband and I just got married. We'd blown all our savings on a wedding. And I also at the time didn't realise that you could sell a business. So I just literally shut the door, packed everything up and left, which I'm devastated about today because we had some amazing European contracts by that point. And I got to Australia with a bag full of bikinis in July. It was freezing. I went, well, I have 30 days basically of money. And if I don't find a job or get any money coming in, I have nowhere to live. I'm not going to be able to get a rental and I'm screwed. And my pride wasn't letting me fly home. So it was do or die. It was absolute do or die. And I think a lot of us are too comfortable sometimes to realize just how much we can do if we were to see our business in a do or die situation. So in this particular do or die situation, because it literally was a matter of life and death, I went to myself, what I've got to do is I've got to get money. Do I need a pretty logo? No. Do I need to bugger around with fancy packages and sales pages? No. I need money. How am I going to do that? Get in front of as many of my target audience as possible. Now, at the time, I was very much focusing on B2B training, so I needed to get in front of corporates. So I borrowed next door's internet connection, and I realised that I was living in Perth at the time, Perth Exhibition and Convention Centre, and there was a mining conference coming up. Ding! I also discovered this really cool thing that happens in Australia where people leave their old crap on the verge. One piece of crap of which I found was a bicycle because I didn't have a car. So I acquired a bicycle from the side of the road. I cycled, I didn't realise at the time was completely illegal, up the freeway to the convention centre. Nearly lost my life 7 times by these giant trucks past me. But I stood outside this convention centre. Now, I didn't have a couple of grand to enter this convention, obviously. I only had my bikinis. But I knew I had to get in that door. Every time those glass sliding doors opened, they were just, in my head, I could just hear them going, ah, and there's all my customers behind them. So every single person walking out, I'm just stood outside like this absolute Darrow. Excuse me, do you need your lanyard? Do you need that? All these people looked at me like I was absolutely clinically insane. Eventually, after about 3 hours of being rejected, this one guy called Pete said, no. He took off his lanyard and he just threw it at me as if it was like, a used condom. I've never been so happy to have somebody's leftovers in my entire life. I adorned myself with this lanyard. If you watch Simba, like Lion King, there's that moment with Simba, like, right, I'm like proper blessing myself with this lanyard. So I was called Pete for like the next 3 days. I go to this conference, I'm walking around so pleased. In my head, I'm like, I got my ticket for free. And it became a really good talking point because I was going around to all these trapped audience who are in booths, right? They can't leave. I've got them, right? They can't leave my sales pitch. And I started every conversation with, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Pete. Not really. It's actually Sarah. No one forgot me because I was Sarah, not Pete, the whole time. I came away from that with a blister on every single toe, but 300 and something business cards who I followed up with every single one of them and said, please can I come to your office and give a free presentation? Completely free of charge. I'm a professional trainer. I usually charge this much for my workshops. Totally made that number up too. However, let me come in for free. Within 6 to 8 weeks, I had my first 6-figure contract. Within 18 months, we had our first $1 million come through in revenue. And this all comes down to the fact that, did I enjoy cycling up the freeway on a stolen bike? Nope. Did I enjoy begging people for their lanyards outside a convention center in like 40-something degrees? No, I did not, right? I did not enjoy walking around that room or getting blisters on my feet. I hate the small talk. Who does? I mean, the most extroverted of us still don't enjoy that kind of stuff. But if you don't do it, you don't get. You don't have the conversations, you're never going to have the opportunity in the business. Like you and I were just chatting before today's show, one of the best things that often comes out of these is these relationships and the long-term partnerships that come out of them. And that's how things really got kicked off here in Australia. It was just going imperfect action. What can I do to get in front of as many people as I possibly can? And even if 90% of them tell me to go away, no, you're going to still have 10% of them that say yes. And you're only going to get that if you just go for it.
Yeah, some key takeaways from that. So marketing and sales comes first, right? Like you are all about just getting in the door, getting your foot there, just saying like, is there a problem? Here's the solution. Can I sell this to you? How much am I going to charge? Like it's amazing. And it's just like time and time again, I can see that in the story. Number 2 is the diversification piece. So with the government twice pulling the pin, obviously, that's a big learning. You want to diversify across who you're selling to, international, different markets, all that sort of stuff. But number 3, and this is kind of something that I not necessarily struggled with, but had to learn, is with your SaaS business, you flew overseas straight away and had a team of 6 working with you, hustling hard. When I started my business, it was like, because I came from a pay-G environment, it was just about like, well, how do I pay myself? Like, how do I replace my salary? And then once you get to a certain point and you earn a whole lot more, it's kind of like, oh, well, I'm on a really nice salary now. But it's still you wearing all the hats and you're going, I can still do this, I can still do this, not too much time. Yeah, it's a 60-hour week, but like now I'm earning a really cool salary. It's all about me. But one of the things I love about what you did with the SaaS business is you essentially just went out straight away and said like, no, like the business is here. How do we hire the people to do these jobs and hire those roles? And I think that's probably attributed to your very quick success in the first 18 months and growing the business that quickly, as you've just gone from all of those learnings, you've gone, okay, how do we implement the systems, the processes, the SAPs, the SOPs, the whatever it is, to continue building the business? Did you ever have a moment in your business career where you're like just focused on your personal income, or like what has that shift or story
Yeah,
looked like
definitely. When there was certainly a phase when I was mostly just focused on creating my own courses and doing my own course creation services. And I'll never forget, it was in the sort of early days when the Tim Ferriss 4-Hour Workweek book came out. I can't remember when that was, like 2012 or something back then. It was a while ago now. I remember being really inspired by that because I'd been paying a lot of money for highly qualified curriculum developers, certified trainer assessors. In the training industry, there are a lot of compliance regulations you have to meet. And so I was spending a lot of money on staff. as I started to move into the B2C industry, going straight to the public and helping individuals create courses, I was going out creating all these education programs for universities and colleges, big corporate organizations. And a lot of the smaller business owners were saying to me, how do I create a course? I want to create an education program. And so I went, well, okay, I can definitely help you do that. Obviously, I'm going to be earning less money because you're not going to be paying the $100,000 that a corporate would be paying for me to create a course. So I had to change the business model quite significantly. I thought, well, how can I scale this so that I can bring the price down to meet a new market that naturally has less income, but also be able to do that to the volume at which I'm still going to be making as much money hour per hour. And this is where we changed the business model, but I realized that to get that kind of scale, I had to multiply myself. So, you take one person on, you've doubled yourself. You've doubled the amount of productivity you can do. And I never forget reading that Tim Ferriss book and thinking, right, I'm going to take somebody on an hour a week to do social media content. So it was about 10 years ago, I took on, who's now still my executive assistant, I took on I took on a VA from the Philippines for $5 an hour to just do 1 hour a week of social media content scheduling for me. So I was writing my content and I just wanted her to schedule it. She then very quickly went up to a couple of hours a week. Today, 10 years later, she's now up at operations management level. Obviously, she's on a lot more than $5 an hour today. And I've now hired half her family as well. So this is really, it's really interesting how when I realized from that first 1 hour hire on that first day she did, I'm doing something else for a client, helping somebody write a course outline. And I finished the job, went to the toilet, came back to my desk with my cup of tea and went, oh my gosh, all of my social media content is scheduled and I wasn't even doing it. That magic moment for me was when I realized that the investment in that person was absolutely multiplied by the amount of work that was now being done. So for me, I just saw the potential of how fast I could basically take the last 5 years of work I'd done and double that in the next 12 months if I took on some help. So I don't think that people need to hire somebody full-time, and I know not everyone can afford to do that, in order to get amazing results and rapid multiplication in their business, and to just take somebody on an hour at a time, 2 hours at a time, slowly increase it as those outcomes and results are bringing them in more money. That has been something that I've really focused on, even with the new startup with Tekmatix a couple of years ago. I'm thinking, can I afford to take these people on? And it's always the balancing act us business owners have to make, right? When we start hiring people, is going, where's the balancing act between what income this person can bring in or the service that they can provide to people that I'm bringing in a way that is going to be liquidated in their salary by that work that they're doing. It takes a while to get it right. But I always say to people, you're more than likely to get it right if their job description is focusing on either income generating tasks or in tasks that stop the customers churning. If you focus on those two things and start your staff off part-time and slowly increase the hours and the number of income generating tasks and the number of churn reducing tasks, you're only ever going to be winning.
And are you still predominantly doing the hire process within your business?
Not at all.
Okay, I love that. And so obviously the team's grown. Your first hire's grown to be now your right-hand girl. What does that hire process grown to for you? Like, did you start with her interviewing people together and then going, this might be a good fit? Did you have a certain criteria, or like what you might not know, but is there like an internal process that you have now around qualification of hiring and what that whole process looks like?
Yeah, well, the first thing I want to mention here is that we also took a diversified approach to hiring as well, and we still very much have that in place today because, again, how can we reduce risk? What we have done is our key roles within the organization, our key customer-facing roles and our key management roles, those people are in-house, full-time employed employees who are all on permanent contracts. What we then did is went, well, what happens if something went wrong? We decided that one of the safer ways to diversify our support would be to complement that core in-house team with an agency. And so we did a lot of shopping around, a lot of looking about, but a lot of that sort of 50 plus of those people that we have on board are all through an agency. And we basically pay a fixed fee per person per month to have this number of people on a circulating roster, all of whom are trained in all of our procedures, all of our systems, absolutely every single thing. So that if someone calls in sick, we have this whole entire group of people that can just fill in at a moment's notice. And that definitely was a contributing factor to the valuation of the business, because we have this, dual but complementing staffing model that is not dependent on one person, one management structure. It's always going to be covered no matter what happens. And we've even further diversified that now by adding in bot support too. So we've got real people on live chat. We're about to add in triage bot too. People who want to choose to go straight to that can, so that we are even, working out, even if all of our people were down, we still have a bot to help people with their support inquiries. So these are all the things that are important. But yes, certainly, just as everything has a system in the business, including the system for how to make systems, we absolutely have fully systemized our staff onboarding. So getting really clear about what you want in your business, like what do you need to do? What do you do if you're on your own right now that brings in money? What do you do if you're on your own right now that does that client retention and keeps existing customers continuing to buy from you? All you need to do when it comes to staff is go, how can I multiply those things first? Because that's where your money is. And then once those people are in place making money or saving lost business, then you can start looking at their job and going, what else could you do? What else could you do to improve the quality? What else could you do to improve the experience? What else could you do to improve the income percentage margin on the existing people we have? That's when you can start really iterating and evolving people's job descriptions. And then once you kind of got a couple of really good job descriptions down, all you need to do is ask yourself, if I simply cloned that person, would it multiply the business? If so, you've already got your job description in place. And what we've done now is simply listed what experience we want them to have, really, really clear job descriptions of everything they need to know. Digitizing all of the onboarding process, so their application right the way through to collecting their details to pay their super and their wages. Again, I've been able to make myself redundant from that process. One of the management we have in-house has HR skills and qualifications, so we've managed to hand that over to her. And the only thing I have to be present for when we have new hires, we actually had 5 new people start this week, yesterday. All I had to be present for, 1 20-minute group call, so that I could do the 2-factor authentication on my phone to give them access to my business. Because as much as I'm happy to hand everything over, that's the only thing that only I have the button for at the moment as a cybersecurity risk management process.
We've still got to have some sort of control to hand over. So I think the agency thing is really cool because at least you've got someone who can handle that entire process for you. Are they all based over in the Philippines?
No, actually, very few of them are.
Okay.
So they're actually a US-based agency.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We have a large number, the majority, we've got clients in lots of countries, but we have the majority in Australia at the moment because that was a lot of where my existing client space were, and another second largest portion is in the US. So having the staffing split between US time zone and Australian time zone was really important. And this particular agency specialized in being able to manage both those time zones, which was one of the decision-making factors about who we picked.
You went for. So for the people that are maybe like doing their first couple of hires, if they're making that decision of, well, I can just run an ad and get some candidates and do the research and hit them up, or they have the ability to maybe get a recruiter, that maybe they don't need a whole entire agency to run everything, but maybe get a recruiter to do a one-off type thing. Is that something you will always do by default now? Is like, let's just say they've got the income to pay for the recruiter and everything else like that?
Not necessarily. I think, everyone's got different businesses, everyone's got different budgets. And certainly from my education side, that doesn't run anywhere like the SaaS business does. So how I have hired people, and I've hired a lot of people over the last 10 plus years, is I have used predominantly Upwork, actually, when that first came out. I was one of the first early users on that. I will put out a really clear job description. open that up for applications. And one of the things I love about platforms like Upwork is that when people apply, you can see their whole profile, everything they've done, all the clients they've worked for, how much money they've earned through the platform, all the reviews and feedback they've had. And all of that's really cool information for you to do your shortlisting. But what is the most important part and the most important step that a lot of people miss, excuse me, when it comes to getting really good people, is the step before hiring. And that is giving people a trial. So what I do, and it doesn't have to be like, oh, we're going to employ you for a probation period. I mean, literally a quick trial. So I would always pick the top 3 people that came out of all of the applications and give them all a $20 task each. Every single one of them, a $20 task that in some way revolves around what would be the most common thing they would do in that role. And whoever followed the instructions the best, and by the way, I purposely leave out a particular step or instruction to see what they do. Do they research? Do they use initiative? Are they proactive? Do they just freeze and go, well, I didn't know how to do that, so I didn't do it? You'll be amazed how many people just go, well, I don't know how to do it because the step wasn't there. Or do they just come back to you and go panic mode? And, you've all got different ideas of who you want to work with and what your management and leadership style is. I personally am not a micromanager. I like to pay more for people who are excellent at what they do, who are going to be able to take a little bit of initiative and leadership in their role, but still be okay to ask for help if they're not sure. And so for me, that $20 challenge will always tell you who was the absolute dud. And I'm going to word it that brutally because usually it's the one that you didn't expect because the CV looks so good. It really tells you who's awesome. And I've always had really successful hires. Most of our people, even in the SaaS world, stayed longer than you would expect in the roles that they've been in. And that is testament to being able to make sure that it's the right person for the right role and it's someone who you're going to vibe with in everyday working.
Yeah, plus the little tasks that they've done, they've been able to conquer and get it done. So you say you're still running the course business alongside the SaaS business as well.
Yeah.
So that's been going for what, 10
Last
years or something?
Yeah,
wow, that's crazy. And so how do you juggle both of the business? Or tell me a little bit more about the course business.
Well, what's interesting, so as a background as a teacher trainer and curriculum developer, for me it started very much B2B. So I was talking about a lot of my work was going out, running training in organizations, so delivering the training itself, or being the curriculum developer and designer. So actually writing training for registered training organizations, universities, colleges, corporate organizations. I've written everything from international defense and aerospace training for the Saudi Arabian military right the way through to, how to make candles and everything in between. It's mad the stuff you learn when you're course creating. My internet history looks like I have an absolute personality disorder. But as kind of the years went by, how I rescued myself actually from that situation when I lost $2.7 million and 21 staff on a single Tuesday morning was I had to ask myself, how do I do this differently? How do I do what I do differently? How do I do what I love differently? I've got to get myself out of the situation. My accountant's going, Sarah, the only way out of this is administration. I was like, no, I got myself in this situation. I'm going to get myself out. No, absolute entrepreneurial defiance. Like, I shall not be beaten. So, I did cry a little bit on the office floor with a bottle of Shiraz for a little bit longer than I should have. However, right, after a little vomit, I picked myself up. I said to myself, how can I do what I do that's clearly been successful, but to not just one local town, one local state, one fund, one industry? So I sat there and thought, I can't fly to all these countries, but little light reflected off the webcam on my computer. And I thought, I have literally been driving around all of these offices in Western Australia, answering the exact same question over and over again every single day. I have been going to classrooms and teaching the exact same thing over and over again every single day. And back then it was all paper. So I just pulled all these giant folders off all the shelves in this empty office all the staff had been abandoned from. And I just sat there, I pressed record, poured another Shiraz, and I just started teaching to the camera. And I recorded, and I recorded, and I recorded the answer to every question I'd ever been asked. I pulled every folder out and taught every single workshop by myself to that camera as if there was a group of people in front of me. And then I started selling it internationally. And I, instead of going into administration, was able to grow my business revenue by 60% in the next 12 months. And get this, because I was paying off all the redundancies, because I had to pay out the office lease of 2 years on 3 offices and all of the other costs that come with losing your whole business, I couldn't take staff on. So I was doing this with an internet connection, the only computer that I didn't sell to claw back my money, and myself and coffee, right? Just going. I realized that there were these learning management system platforms back then, were only just coming out. Udemy had only just come out. And boom, my courses and my training were available everywhere. And I was going back to square one, phoning up all those corporates and saying, hey, you just lost all of your money from that government grant. I actually can sell you the exact same workshop that you were paying me 50 grand a month for, instead for $100 a head. You in? Boom. Yes, we're in, because we're skint too. Next thing. Hey, you lost all that money? I can sell you the exact same course for only $100 a head. You in? I'm in. Boom. The business grew. And that's when all of my friends and entrepreneur circles started going, how are you making all this money from online courses? How are you doing it all by yourself? And that's when I started teaching the everyday non-educator how to commercialize their IP, commercialize their knowledge, from everybody from podcasters through to people who were, just growing plants to every topic you could imagine. Can you help me do the same? So my business, as I started having kids, I then got pregnant. It took us a while, but I was stoked to find out I was pregnant. I then pulled back on the corporate training that I was doing and the corporate services, and focused just on this online education and helping individuals create their courses by myself with this, couple of hour a week Filipino VA that I'd hired. And it was incredible how fast it grew. So there was another day, me and white pieces of sticky butcher's paper I stuck up on the wall. I remember then I was doing well, but I was still pulling myself out of the debt that I'd incurred. I was still paying out all these redundancies, still paying out all of the leases that I had to shut down early and break from. And I had my first, I think it was just under 100 students online, which I was so stoked about. And I put up this massive goal, and I'm a 10X girl. I don't know if any of you listening have ever read, Grant Cardone's 10X or anything like that. I don't particularly like Grant. Sorry, Uncle G, but I absolutely love his principles. I love what he teaches. And he's always like, do you know what? Like, whatever goal you've got, 10X it. So I had this goal. I had this 100 students, and I was like, I'm going to have 10,000 students one day. That is my goal. To me, it seemed absolutely ridiculous. I did not in any way understand how it'd be possible, considering I'd spent, however many years teaching in classrooms where you cannot physically get more than 30 butts on the chairs in the room. So in my head, I'm still seeing the world from how many bums on seats can you fit in a classroom. So 10,000 people to me, I'm thinking, do you know what? I might be about 60 or 70 when I get there if I teach every single day for the rest of my life. I think it was within the first year, I had over 12,000 students. And my personal brand just exploded. And by the time you've touched 1,000 people, your word of mouth, if you're doing a good job, actually, that's when the tipping point I found is in kind of a personal brand world. That first 1,000 customers is usually when your tipping point happens and you began to get noticed and people start referring you. And that for me just multiplied over the next 12 months. And that's when all these big awards started coming in. And I sort of really developed a name for myself as the course creation chick, in my industry. There wasn't anyone else doing it, certainly not qualified. So that's when things really exploded. And then fast forward to today, and I'm sat here with you. I've got 281,000 students in my courses in 181 countries. And they're not all active right now. I mean, that's collectively over time. But if someone had said to me 10 years ago, particularly that day when I was vomiting in the waste paper bin with a glass of Shiraz, feeling terribly sorry for myself because I'd lost my education company. Don't worry, Sarah, one day you're going to have 280,000 students and be getting interviewed on awesome podcasts. So I would have been like, shut up, you're such a tease. But you know what? Because I was stubborn and because I kept saying to myself, what is another way? There is another way. There must be another way. There's always another way. And I just stubbornly went stomping out there, finding other ways. Here we are.
And you've just been consistent. Obviously, you've been doing it for that long. Is that 280 across a number of different courses?
Yeah, so just my personal courses that I've gone B2C myself. So that number doesn't even include my corporate clients. Oh, wow. So where, you know, there's a lot of corporate clients who've got out there that will just pay me a fixed fee for like 2,000 of their staff to go through a course. That doesn't count any of those. So this is just pure going out to the big, bad, wide, ugly world and those people buying courses from me over the years. And I have created a lot. So I think I think there's over 120 courses active in my academy at the moment. But over the last 15 years, there's been a lot more courses than that.
And on pricing on courses, because I'm quite curious, like a lot of the stuff that I see is all high ticket, right? Especially in the industry that I'm in. But there's also a lot of low ticket courses that are out there. Have you found like a certain price point that works really well for you? Do you base it on who the target market is? Do you base it on how long the course is? Like, what's your thought process around pricing?
I love that question. So there's actually two major stages to this. First of all, one is the market, which you've talked about there. And the second stage is your customer journey for your particular business. So let's touch on those. One is, for me, right, the earth isn't round. It's a triangle. And if you're in business, I want you to see the world as a triangle too. So this is not me being stereotypical, judgmental. This is actually statistically how our economic structure in the world is divided. The top of your triangle, you've got your tippy top bit, and that is the high end of the market. You're always going to have a tippy top bit. There are always going to be people in that top part. But of course, the tippy top bit is smaller, so there's less of them. Let's carry on with the principle. Down at the bottom end of your triangle, the fattest end, this is what we call the low ticket end of the market. Now, this end of the market are the people who are living paycheck to paycheck. And the reality is around 80% of the world's population sit in that bottom part. So those people down there are, I'm going to be very stereotypical here for the point of illustration, are unlikely or never going to ever be at the tippy top end. Obviously, there's a few success stories out there of people that do, but let's just go pure illustration here. In the middle, you've got your mid end of the market. Let's categorize it as like middle class. People that don't necessarily have a massively high disposable income, but if they saw something they wanted at that top end, they could save for it. They'd be in a position to get a loan for it, or whatever. So if you think about those three major ends of the market, a successful business will have something for the low priced but high volume end of the market. That's your low ticket offer. We'll have something that is exclusive, VIP, luxury, high ticket version of whatever they do for that tippy top high end of the market. More money, less people, low volume, and of course, another version of whatever you sell or whatever you do in that middle priced end of the market. So when it comes to anything in business, and I'm sitting down coaching people, that's the first thing we sit down and go is, yes, it's totally okay to focus on one of those. Some people say, do you know what? My vibe is high end, luxury goods, high ticket. I'm not interested in anything else. Cool, that's totally okay. Other people are like, I'm all about the low ticket offers. My goal is to help as many people as possible. So, if that is your goal, you have to have a low priced offer because you cannot possibly hit the masses unless you have a low ticket offer. If you are, however, like me, you can have all of them. Why not? So as I'll do it myself as an example, my course creation training program, you have a version of stuff that's free because there are some people that just will never have the money or never want to invest. Then you've got your low price course creation training. Then you've got your mid price. And then the high end, you've got done with you services, done for you services. Come away on a boot camp, come on a retreat with me. What would be your equivalent basically of these low or high ticket offers? If you've got something at every level, you're hitting every end of the market. Much better business model. Then of course, from there, now you know that you want to hit high, low, or all of them. Now you're going to create what's called a customer journey. And so courses are the same, but this applies to any kind of business whatsoever. But I'm going to give a course example. Again, you're now going to look at your low end of your customer journey. You're going to look at what's all the stuff or all the ways I can package up my knowledge, package up my tips, package up my year's worth of experience, and either give that away for free, of course, in exchange for an email address, or to give that away at a very, very low price. What works well for this is things like your ebooks, your checklists. Maybe you do a webinar recording. Maybe you package up what we're doing today and sell this as an education program. Those work really, really well. Then perhaps you have your lower ticket stuff. It might be a short online course that's self-study. You may have a coaching program that is more group coaching rather than one-on-one coaching. And as you start moving along your customer journey up to your higher end, this is where you might bring in, could I go on a boot camp with you, a retreat with you? Is there a service that you and I could do together? You know, if I came to your house and spent a day with you, what could you help me have done or finished by the end of the day? These are all the kind of spaces where you're going to be adding that much higher pricing on the end, because now you're involved in the process. So the main principle of your customer journey is, down at the free or cheap end, you should not be involved in the process whatsoever. The whole entire transaction should be completely automated, and you are not in any way involved in that transaction happening at all. As you move to mid-end, you might be involved a tiny bit. Maybe there is just an initial get-together. Maybe there is weekly group calls that you get on, but you're still going to have limited personal involvement in the fulfillment of the product or the coaching program. As you move to the top, it's usually that they're paying a high price because they want you as the expert. And let's face it, when any of us want anything done, most of us, know that we're going to get that done faster if we just sit down with the guy, with the chick, and they make you do it or do it with you. They take over your laptop, they stand there and help you do whatever it is that needs to be done, and you're willing to pay the money knowing that you're basically skipping 2 years worth of mucking around and learning. And that is where you now can create a version of the exact same topic. Let's face it, you could be teaching your exact same thing, but you're going to have a version of it that has a different depth, a different amount of content, and a different outcome, as well as a different level of involvement of yourself in each of those different stages.
And would you have all three of those triangles public facing, like have the small, medium, high ticket items shown to everyone? Or would you generally within that journey have like someone come through the funnel, you get their email, maybe you sell them something low ticket and then have an upsell on the back end?
Again, every business is quite different. So, we'd always go, let's have a look and see what works for your particular business. But personally, I think the more that people know what you have on available, and the more often you present all of the options to them, the more likely you're going to be to make sales. And certainly today, there is a lot slower and a lot harder and a lot more touch points required to make sales. So one of the things that I do to do this, not only do I constantly have social media content going out there saying, PS, here are all the ways I can help you, but I actually use my automated emailing system to constantly let people know what they can buy from me. And I recommend that all of my clients and customers do exactly the same thing. So if you have a business, I recommend you create a template in your email system, whatever system you're using. I hope it's Tekmatix. You have your helpful email, but at the bottom, this is how I do mine. It's how I've done it for years. It works, trust, is PS, first name. Are you still thinking about, and then result that you give? So for me, mine says, are you still thinking about creating an online course? For yours, are you still thinking about buying a home? Are you still thinking about losing weight? Are you still thinking about blah, blah, blah? Then you're going to say, here are X ways that I can help you do that. And so I then simply list, you can book a call with me, you can join my academy, you can come on a coaching program, you can join this retreat, you can get me to do it for you. List down that whole customer journey, all those options you have from low price to high price, you just list them with the direct link for that person to go there and buy it from you. I think when people put these walls up and these barriers up and make people jump through funnels and fences, I think they're actually just losing customers, because it doesn't need to be that hard. Just tell people, here are all the ways I can help you. Here are the links. Talk to me if you want to ask any questions. And if you have got social media content going out regularly, and we were talking today about how valuable that's been for both of our businesses, is if every single one of those pieces of social content going out have a call to action. If you're doing, what we're doing today, any kind of organic marketing, any kind of exposure opportunity has a call to action. They go on your email list, and those emails are going out every single week with that PS at the bottom. You are getting those touch points, which, by the way, today is apparently 22 touch points before somebody will even remember that they've seen you before, let alone before they even take action. That's before action is taken. And a lot of people are putting out a couple of social media posts and go, my stuff isn't working. But if you're putting social media content out and you are using some kind of automated emailing system, making it even easier for yourself by sending out just an RSS-based email. So anyone who's not heard of that before, it's basically when your YouTube or your blog, they all have what's called a feed. So that feed is just a URL. If you've got a WordPress website, your feed is usually yourwebsite.com/feed. You don't even have to understand how it works. You just put that URL in the email sending campaign and say, send this email every week, for instance. You choose your frequency. And this is what we have in Tekmatix. That you press set and forget on. That will now send out all of the social media posts, the blog posts, or the YouTube videos that you have published in that last 7 days. So you don't even have to make your own newsletters today anymore either. And if on the bottom of that template, it has here are the X ways I can help you. Not only is all of your content being maximized in its exposure, you're also consistently putting your offers in front of people's faces. And if you're still not selling, usually, again, it's something to do with the way that you've worded, explained, or described the service that's on those pages.
It's genius. I've used the PS thing quite a bit, but that having it so simple with a call to action is really smart, because if you put a paywall up or 2 or 3 clicks away from being able to see pricing, it's like, what's the point? You've already got the email. They're already interested because they're receiving your email. And if you keep reminding them of your products and your services and you've got the pricing there, then, they don't have to go through hoops and bounds to try and understand what it is. If they're there, active, ready to see it on the spot, they can just click through to see what they need to get.
Yeah. And you know what, today as well, there's another statistic out there that not only do we have this 22 touch points before they even engage, is after they've engaged and you have got them in your system, there is actually now an average of 12 to 18 months before they become a buyer. So they will sit and watch. So if you haven't got this welcome sequence turned on, or you haven't got RSS-based emails sending your content out regularly, you're already massively extending that duration of them buying from you. But importantly, what happens the first time they see, here are all the ways I can buy from Jordan or buy from Sarah, is they'll go, ooh, I really want to do that, but I don't have the money right now. However, that's now on my wish list. That's now on my goals list. My goal is to be able to afford Jordan's banger program. So I get my client says to me all the time, the first time I saw that, I literally put you on my vision board, and having that day with you was on my vision board. If I had held back letting people know that higher ticket option was available, it would have been another 2 years plus, or ever at all, before they would have known it was even there to put on their vision board and save up for. So we have to be aware of people's realities. Sometimes we think we're being clever. Actually, all we're doing is putting up walls and not letting people who are ready to buy from us or who want to save, who we could be offering payment plans to now anyway, from actually coming in.
I was going to ask you about that. Over the years of the payment plans coming into place, has it been a massive improvement for you?
Yeah. If you're not offering payment plans, you're missing out on money. Absolutely. I'm a really big fan of payment plans and offering people lots of different ways to pay, because let's face it, if any of us, we wanted to go and buy a house tomorrow, there's not a lot of people that have a spare 50, 60 grand just sitting there in cash, right? Hopefully you haven't, because you should be investing it in places, right? If anyone who's got cash just sat in their bank account, you're doing it wrong, right? So what do we want to be doing here is going, well, how can I make it as easy as possible for people to buy from me? So when I do get an email from people saying, I'd love to do this, but I don't have the money right now, I'm like, well, cool, let's go on a payment plan. It takes 2 seconds on most business platforms today, Tekmatix included, to just go, charge for $3,000, but let's spread it out over 12 months. Boom, the system will automatically charge the direct debit card. You're not involved in that process. It's just on. If the credit card fails, the system will remove that access from something. And hopefully, if it's a service, for instance, you will have designed the delivery of the service so that you don't hand over the last bit until the last thing's paid. If it's a course, you just cut off their access, or you drip release the content over 12 months. So there's lots of different ways for you to protect, your assets if for any reason they did drop and run and disappear off planet Earth. Make sure you've got contracts turned on, and Tekmatix do, right? Where you're getting people to actually sign these agreements in the first place. But again, you're going to get customers that you wouldn't normally have if you were expecting people to pay money up front. And what I've found from a business perspective is putting people on payment plans is really good for the bottom line. The cash flow, now you've got more recurring revenue coming in. So I personally love them, not only as a consumer myself, but also as a business owner.
Yeah, you have that consistent money coming in, it improves the cash flow, as you say.
Yeah.
One final thing, because we're nearly at an hour and a half, and I'm very wary of your time. But you've authored a few books in your time. I think it's 16 in total. And if you've got 5 number 1 bestsellers, that's crazy. Well done.
Thank you.
Tell me about the authoring process.
I always wanted to be an author. And one day I'm going to be an author. And again, thought it was really complicated. Thought you'd have to have loads of money, a big fat marketing team. I thought you'd have to do all these, really complicated things and hire expensive consultants. And actually what I realised was very quickly that to publish a book, you just literally write it, you lock yourself in a room for a day or so, and you press save as PDF, and then you go to kdp.com and you press upload. and that's it. And so I'm sorry I've just like ruined so many people's dreams and made myself look nowhere near as smart and clever and fabulous as, you may have just thought I was 3 minutes ago. But basically, what I did with one of my first books, I realized that Google Docs has a voice typing tool on it. Now, of course, there's loads of AI tools now, but back then that was like, a miracle. So I was pushing my baby along in the pram in the supermarket, and I had this crappy $10 pair of headphones on with a little microphone on the side, walked up and down the mall with the Google Docs app on my phone, just talking aloud, chat, chat, chat. I looked like a crazy person. However, by the time a whole day had gone by, with a few Punado changes in between, I had a whole book written in a day. 3 days later, I had edit checked it, file, save as PDF, uploaded it to KDP. I then just went, oh my gosh, I'm an author. By the way, the covers you can make yourself. Back then I did it on Fiverr. I make my own now in Canva because obviously the design features in there are incredible, and so are the templates that are already there. But to get to number one, again, I'm going to totally ruin how amazing I look. I want everyone to just go, she's amazing anyway. Thanks. I just shared on Facebook, so saying, woohoo, my new book's published. And I made it as low price as possible. I think it's like $2.99 is the cheapest you can sell a book for on Amazon, and it still be considered a paid book. And I went shopping, came back from the shops, quickly checked my Amazon, refreshed it, and it was number one. I died. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've gone viral. Someone's picked me up. I'm going to be on the news tonight. First time indie author, sold 10 million books in a day. Well, I logged in and I pressed refresh again because I wasn't sure if it was working properly. Like, I'd sold so many copies that it just wasn't quite updated and I'd broken the whole internet. No, I had sold, drumroll please, 34 books. So I'm going, is something broken? Like, what is happening? So on Amazon, basically they update their bestseller ranking every hour in every category of a subcategory of a subcategory. So to take all the glamour away from this, to become a number one best-selling author and to get that amazing screenshot of your book in the number one place, all you have to do is sell the most amount of books in that one particular hour in your subcategory of a subcategory of a subcategory. So how many people in Australia at 2 p.m. in the afternoon were promoting a book about curriculum design and development? Well, clearly nobody, because I probably got to number one after the first one was sold.
Thank you for clarifying the metrics behind Amazon, because I've always been very curious around how everyone gets to number one bestseller as soon as they launch, and now it's quite obvious to be fair. But it's true and it's smart. Like, I mean, there's not a lot of people that will take the time. I was going to ask you, like, how do you find the time to do all this? But obviously, talking notes into a Google Drive during the day does fine.
Yeah, and there was another one where, once you've done it once, it is a little bit addictive. You're like, oh, I've got so many more book ideas now. I actually, for the second one, flew to India, and I just spent 4 days just typing 12 hours a day, and type, and got this whole book out of my head. Well, now the next one I'm putting together, I'm going to see if AI can help in a way. So anyone who doesn't know, you can now create a clone of yourself on ChatGPT. Take one of my training courses on how to do that. And basically, inside ChatGPT, you can feed it. For instance, with mine, I've fed all of my video transcripts I've ever made. I've made a lot of videos. Feed the transcript into the bot, learn how I speak, learn my tone of voice, learn my language, learn my style. Every blog post I've ever written, I've chucked it in. Every social media post, copy paste, chucked it in. So this ChatGPT bot of me now speaks exactly like me. It refers every single one of my programs. It links to all of my products, my blog posts, everything. And this is like version 1 of this thing, right? Imagine how good it's going to be in a year or so. So what I'm thinking now is, if I continue to train this bot, I think it won't be long before I could just type into it, write my next book on this topic, and it is going to say it in exactly my language. Who knows? And of course, there's loads of discussion around the ethics of AI generated content. On Amazon now, you have to declare if something is AI generated, like you do with videos on socials. However, it again, it's a tool. And if that was going to help me fast track that period of time it takes to structure out what might be in my content, what might be in my chapters, so that then I can get to the organic element of speaking it out, why not? it's really interesting what might become available.
If you can get it to do 95% of the work and you're just doing the 5% to edit it, like it's still your work. It's all of your previous works, all your previous articles, all your previous blogs. It's written the same way and structure that you have.
Yeah.
It's just you actually doing the final editing thing. Like,
yeah, and this is it. You know, a lot of the real value from when any of us are writing books or delivering educational programs is usually our stories and our experiences that come with it. You know, how you came to know what you know, how you came to learn that thing. So obviously a bot's never going to know your stories and your histories. I say never. Let's not say never, right? But that's where, you know, when you're adding in that human part and then, you know, flossing around the tips that then relate to that story, yeah, it's a tool of service to support and assist like every other tool in business is.
have you, with your courses, have you grown? Like obviously AI coming into the market has been crazy. I think it's super smart that you've like created custom courses from this. When industry changes or new technology comes in, are you just straight onto it and build a course and build it out like that?
Yeah, and I think any single one of us and all that we're doing and all the industries we're in and all the kinds of work we all do, I think the more we can be the first guys to jump on something, the bigger jumps and leaps we're going to be making in our income. Obviously we can't go out there saying we're the best in something or we know everything about something. We just can't. And we also need to realize when we think that everyone's doing it already, that they're not. Because I see a lot of my clients who come to me saying, well, I was going to do this, but now everyone's creating a course on AI in my niche, in my field, in my industry. And I'm going, are they really? Let's do a reality check. Half of the world doesn't even have the internet yet. Can we just take stock of that for a second? So on top of the fact that only half the world had the internet, out of all of the internet users, 1% of us are business owners. Out of that 1% of us that are on the internet and are business owners, only half of them again are actually teaching people. And out of that half, only 1% of them are actually active in AI. So when we're surrounded by what we think is everybody, it really isn't. If you've got an idea, if you see how it could help one person, the chances are with 7.9 billion people on earth, it's going to help more than one person. And even if for the pure joy and creativity of creativity, do it anyway. And it might just make you some money and change someone's life.
And it comes down to execution as well. I've had engaged a lot of people that have said, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm going to work on this next, and I do that. And I've gone, okay, well, I was going to do that, but I won't. But then you talk to them 6 months, 12 months later, and they haven't done anything. Yeah. And it's like, well, if you've got the idea and you want to go and execute on it, just go and execute on it. Worst case, they do create something similar, but then people are probably that interested in the topic that they might just buy both. Like,
yeah. And this is what I say to people, like when it comes to courses or ideas or business ideas, you and I could literally go and teach the exact same thing tomorrow with the exact same script. You could even wear the freaking same dress as me. But the fact is, some people are going to hate me and love you and hate me because of how we look, how we speak, how we talk, how we explain it. We're both going to explain it and do it differently and perform differently, even if we're using the same words. And I think a lot of us forget that business is a business of people. So as long as we remember there is no such thing as competition anyway. And if just to finish on that, sort of someone else might have that same idea, is there's a cool book by Elizabeth Gilbert called Big Magic. And it talks about how ideas are visitations, and these ideas exist in the world, and all ideas are doing are looking for somebody to make them come to life. So you can imagine, I like to think of that, there's this little fairy or a little bubble floating around, like, I have an idea, please someone love me, please make me real, So this little bubble, this idea will come and plop itself on your pillow when you're asleep tonight, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to do that, and then you don't. And so the idea is like, screw you, and so it flies out your window the next morning and comes and flies to my house and then sits on my pillow and it's like, come on, make me real, and I do it. And you're thinking, damn that, Sarah, that was my idea. But I'm the one that actioned it, so the idea stayed with me, right? And this is kind of the concept of that. And I think that a lot of my success has come down to the fact that I've had an idea and I've gone, stuff it, I'm going to do it. If that drive in there is in there, that excitement's in there, what's the worst can happen? You learn something.
Yeah, if you ever catch me wearing the same dress as you, I hopefully have some more courses still for attention.
I don't know. That could be a good marketing trick. As long as you don't know better than me in it, otherwise I'll be well mad.
Very true. That would be a hard thing to do. Well, I'm going to wrap it up because we're already, I don't know how long it's been, but it's been a while.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No,
I gave you some extra value, guys.
Great conversation. I had a whole list of things to go through, but we're there. So thank you for coming on.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me. I hope everyone has come away with some ideas, some inspiration. We'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. What sort of your top 3 takeaways from that? Any aha moments that you're going to implement over the next 90 days? I always say no matter what you do, what you learn, take something away and implement it. So we'd love to know in the comments what you're going to be taking away from today. And thank you very much for having me.
That's all right. And where can people reach you?
If you want to get in touch, you can go to sarahcordiner.com/links and you'll find all of my socials there. We can connect.
I love it, mate. You're all over it. So good. Thank you.